Starting chapter 2, chapter 2 is all about functions. So lesson 2.1 is covering linear equations in two variables for our function, which our two variables will be x and y. Everything here should be something that's familiar to you from your algebra classes that you've taken. But if anything is new, that's okay too. So start off, just a review of our slope-intercept form equation. We worked with this a ton. Slope-intercept form is our y equals mx plus b. We know the slope is your m value, the y-intercept is your b value, and can be written as the ordered pair 0, b. So if we sketch each equation here real quick, we know that 2 is our m, which is our slope. Our y-intercept is 0 and 1. Positive 1, and our slope has to be rise over run. So 2 over 1, both positive. Start at your y-intercept every single time. So we start here at 0, 1, so the y-intercept at positive 1. And then from there, we'll move our slope up 2 over 1. So up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, and make sure you don't put any points until you move both directions. And then, of course, go down to -1 to finish out your line, get as many points on that graph as you can, and then connect with a nice straight line. Now letter B just gives you y equals 2. There's no x value here, so no x means the slope is 0. So then this is your y-intercept. Your b value is your y-intercept is 0, 2, so we go up to 0, 2. And then a 0 slope means up 0 over 1. So up 0 over 1 over 1 over 1. So it's a horizontal line. And then letter C, before you can graph anything, has to be solved for y. So I'm going to subtract x on both sides, and that'll give us y equals a negative x and a positive 2. Then we can pick out our slope as negative 1 over 1, and then our y-intercept is 2. So we start at 2. And then keep in mind, when you have a negative slope, only one of those values is negative. So if I go down a -1, I have to go over positive 1. If you make both of them negative, two negatives is equivalent to a positive slope, but we don't want that. So we only want one of them to be negative, down 1 over positive 1, or we can go up the positive 1 and then -1, and that'll get us our entire line. So be careful with negative slopes. Make sure you only make one of the directions negative. And then visually, when you look at a negative slope, it should look like it's going downhill. If you have a negative slope in your equation, but it's not a negative slope in the look of the graph, something is wrong. It should be going downhill like that. All right, number 2, this is something I took from the book that you're going to be asked to do. Identify the line that has each slope. Now we've got 3 lines down here. We've got line 1, we've got line 2, and we've got line 3. Now nothing on here, I don't get any numbers, I don't get any equations, the only thing I get is the slope. But just by seeing the direction of the slope, so in my problem here, I have a 0 slope, I have a -3/4, and I have a positive 1. Just knowing what those are can help us line these up, because we know a 0 slope is a horizontal line. It's straight across, just going over. So right away, I know that is line 2. Line 2 matches up with letter A. The difference between B and C here is one's positive, one's negative. So all I need to do is look at my graph and say, well, line 1 has a negative slope, so that has to be the -3/4, and line 3 has a positive slope, so that has to be the positive 1. So even though we don't know numbers on this, just the direction of the line can help us tell the difference with our slopes, positive, negative, and 0. And we haven't talked about it yet, but an undefined slope, remember, goes up and down. So that would be if you have a graph, if your line is vertical, is undefined slope. So that's something you'll see in your homework. Then number 3 is also one that I took from the book from your homework. Sketch the lines through the point with the indicated slopes on the same graph. So we're going to use the point -4, 1, and that's where we're going to start all of these. So from -4 up 1, that's the point we're going to reference for all of these slopes. And then because we have our iPads, we can color code. So I'm going to do the slope of 3 in red. So my slope of 3 has to go over 1. So both positive, up 3, over 1. So go ahead and make as many marks as you can for that. Go down 3, -1. So that will be my line A. So if I draw that in red, and next to that, I say that is line A. And then line B, we're going to draw on the same graph, -3 over +1. So now I'm going to go down 3 over +1 for my negative slope. And put all those points on the same graph. I'm going to graph that one in blue. And then next to that one, I'm going to say that's line B. And then continuing, line C, my slope is up 1 over 2, both positive. So here's what my line C would look like. Again, we're starting from that same point every time. And I'll label this as line C. And line D we'll do in green, that is undefined. So remember we just said an undefined slope runs straight up and down. So through my point, I'm going to put my line straight up and down. And that green line is my line D. So all 4 lines through one point, all 4 different slopes.